In the heart of Tokyo, hidden beyond the lights and crowds, there lies a narrow alley no map remembers. When the rain falls, footsteps echo softly through the mist, and a woman in white appears, searching for the child she never held. This is not just a ghost story. It's a tale of love, guilt, and a curse born from silence. When night comes and the rain begins to fall, she walks again. Chapter 1. The Nameless Alley. The night rain fell endlessly over Tokyo. From afar, the sound of the last train blended with the whispering wind through rows of decaying houses. Akira Sato pulled his collar tighter, clutching his camera, stepping cautiously into a narrow alley, the one locals called the Nameless Alley. He was following the trail of a missing university student named Mika. Last seen walking into this alley around 11 p.m. No security cameras, no witnesses. Only rumors of a woman in a white kimono who appeared at the end of the alley every night. Her head bowed, hair dripping wet, whispering words no one could understand. Akira's footsteps echoed softly on the wet pavement. He stopped in front of the last house, a decaying wooden structure with shattered windows and darkness seeping from within. A crooked sign hung by the gate, its writing barely visible under the rain. House number 13. A gust of cold wind blew past. Then came the sound, clack, 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 the distinct tapping of wooden sandals moving toward him. "Excuse me, is anyone in there?" Akira called out. No reply. He raised his camera and flashed a shot. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a small bloody handprint on the wall. At that very moment, a woman's whisper came from right behind him, so close. He could feel her breath. "Greater than, you won't escape either." Akira spun around. No one there. Only the chill crawling down his neck, and a shadow of a woman with long hair stretching across the wall. Even though his flashlight wasn't pointed that way. His hands trembling, he snapped a photo. When he checked the picture, the frame was empty, except for a faint white mist drifting from the direction of the old house, as if something unseen had just left it. Chapter 2. Footprints in the rain. The rain hadn't stopped since that night. Tokyo lay under a thin gray mist, streets glistening dimly under the pale glow of streetlights. Akira Sato returned to his small apartment on the third floor of an old building. His hands still trembled as he turned on the lamp and set his camera down. He couldn't shake off that whisper, the voice that had brushed past his ear in the alley. He opened his camera, scrolling through the photos. Every shot from the alley was blurred, covered in a strange white haze, except one. The photo taken in front of house number 13. When Akira zoomed in, his blood froze. On the wet ground behind him were two sets of small footprints, clearly shaped like a woman's wooden sandals. But he had been alone that night. He tried to calm himself, maybe it was a reflection, or a camera glitch. He placed the camera on the desk and walked to the window. Rain streaked down the glass. Neon lights from a nearby convenience store bled red into the puddles. Then, reflected in the window, he saw a woman's silhouette standing at the gate of his building. Long hair, white clothing, motionless in the rain. Akira blinked. When he looked again, she was gone. He turned back toward the room and froze. On the wooden floor, leading from the window to his desk, were two wet footprints, small, slender, perfectly formed. His pulse raced. He backed away, but the floor creaked softly, step, 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 as if someone else were moving with him. He flicked on all the lights. The room was empty. Only the faint dripping sound from the roof remained. Desperate to make sense of it, Akira played the audio recording he'd made in the alley. At first there was only rain, footsteps, and static. But when he slowed the playback, he heard something faint, a woman's whisper. Unmistakable. "Greater than, you've seen me now." The voice came exactly at the 17-second mark, the moment he took his first photo. Akira's heart pounded violently. He leapt up and ran toward the door. Then, click, the desk lamp flickered, sputtered, and went out. In the brief flash of light, something rolled from under the table, a small wooden sandal, soaked in muddy water, streaked with fresh blood. He picked it up, his fingers shaking. Inside the sandal, carved crudely into the wood, were the words, "Greater than, KO, is looking for you." From the hallway outside came the slow, echoing sound of footsteps. Clack, clack, clack. Akira held his breath. The ceiling light flickered back to life, and the sandal in his hand was gone. Chapter 3. The second photograph. Morning came. The rain hadn't stopped. Gray skies pressed low over Tokyo, and droplets clung to the windowpane of Akira's small apartment. He awoke exhausted, head pounding, still haunted by the sound of wooden sandals echoing through the night. He turned on his camera again. Every photo he'd taken in the alley was blurred, covered in a milky haze, except for one. The shot he'd taken toward house number 13. As the image appeared on the screen, Akira's breath caught. In the lower right corner, barely visible through the rain, was the face of a woman staring directly into the lens. Her eyes were wide and empty. Her mouth twisted upward in a faint, unnatural smile. Akira stumbled back, heart hammering. When he printed the photo, the horror deepened. The woman in the picture had moved closer. The image had changed. Dash dash dash. Drop of blood, the photo that bled. Later that day, Akira took the photo to the darkroom at his office. The technician, Mr. Tanaka, a veteran of 20 years, examined it and frowned. "Greater than, strange," he murmured. "This lighting doesn't make sense. How did you capture her so clearly in that weather?" Akira said nothing. Tanaka turned the photo over, then froze. On the back was the imprint of a wet hand, 5 slender fingers, and a faint smear of dried blood at the tip of the index finger. "Greater than, who brought blood into my lab?" he muttered, wiping at it, but the stain didn't fade. It had soaked into the paper. A cold breeze swept through the sealed room. The lights flickered. Then, without anyone touching it, the printer started up, rattle, whir, spitting out another photograph. It was a photo of Akira himself, standing in that very dark room. And behind him, reflected in the glass wall, was the woman in the white kimono, her hair hanging loose, her face half hidden, her eyes hollow and black. The camera slipped from Akira's hands. Tanaka lunged for the power switch, but the machine kept printing, dozens of photos spilling out, one after another. Each new image showed the woman's face growing clearer, closer, until her eyes seemed to pierce through the lens itself. Akira bolted from the room, his pulse roaring in his ears. Through the glass door, his reflection stared back at him, and in that reflection, the woman stood behind him, her eyes meeting his through the glass. Dash dash dash. Telephoned the missing man. That night, Akira returned home and tried to calm himself. The photos he'd brought back now lay scattered across his desk. He stared at them until his phone rang. "Greater than, Sato, it's me, Tanaka." The voice on the other end was low, trembling. "Greater than, she's in the photos. Akira, I tore them up, but she..." Static crackled through the line. "She won't stop." Then silence. The call ended abruptly. The phone screen flashed one last message. "Number does not exist." Dash dash dash. Skull the news report. The next morning, the television blared breaking news. "Greater than, a man was found dead inside a photolab in Arakawa district last night. The victim's body was discovered in a state of extreme deformation, clutching a photograph of himself. Behind him, a woman with long hair appears faintly in the image." Akira sat frozen, unable to breathe. He looked down at the stack of photos on his desk. The newest print was still warm. In it, KO stood right beside him, her pale hand resting gently on his shoulder, and this time, she was smiling. Chapter 4. The locked room. The rain continued without end. Tokyo seemed buried beneath a heavy gray veil. Akira Sato no longer trusted his own mind, yet something inside him urged to return to the Nameless Alley. He carried his camera, a flashlight, and a bottle of old sake. The man at the camera shop had joked, "Greater than, if ghosts really exist, at least offer them a drink." Akira had laughed at the time, now he wasn't so sure. Dash dash dash. The alley was utterly still. No footsteps, no voices. Only the faint drip, drip, drip of rainwater from broken gutters. At the end stood house number 13, its wooden gate covered in moss. A torn charm hung loosely on the doorframe, its black ink blurred by moisture. Akira pushed the door open. It creaked long and low, like something mourning. The air inside reeked of mold, smoke, and old incense. He swept the flashlight across the room. There, a small altar, its incense ash long cold. A faded photo rested there, a woman in a white kimono, smiling faintly. The name on the tablet read, Fujiwara Ko. Notebook The Discovery. On the floor, half hidden under debris, Akira found a small wooden box. The lock had rusted away. Inside was a diary, its pages yellowed and stiff. The handwriting was delicate, a woman's, now smudged and trembling with age. Greater than, November 18th, 1972. He said he would marry me today. I've never felt so happy. But why does he still keep me hidden? The next pages were warped, stained with water or tears. Then the words broke off, jagged and faint. Greater than, someone is outside the door. It must be him. But why is he holding a knife? A loud bang echoed from upstairs. Akira froze. Even knowing the house had been abandoned for decades, the sound of footsteps was unmistakable, slow, dragging. He raised the flashlight and crept up the stairs. Each step groaned beneath his weight. The door at the top was locked. He tried the handle, unmoving. Then, click, the lock turned on its own. He pushed the door open. The room smelled of rot and dust. At the center stood a tall mirror, shrouded in a white cloth. Akira approached, fingertips brushing the fabric. A chill breath passed the back of his neck. He pulled the cloth away. In the mirror, the empty room reflected back. But standing behind him was a woman, head lowered, hair dripping, kimono stained dark at the wrists. He spun around. No one there. But in the mirror, she remained, slowly raising her face. Her smile splitting wider, voice rising like a whisper from the glass. Greater than, you've come back, again. The mirror shattered with a deafening crack. Fragments scattered across the floor. Behind the shards, a message appeared on the wall, written in dark red, as if drawn with blood. Greater than, I never left. Akira stumbled backward, hitting the box. The diary fell open to the final entry. Greater than, December 2nd, 1972. He locked me in this room. He said no one could know I existed. I heard his footsteps fading outside. I will never forgive him. Putting the pieces together, Akira saw it clearly. A woman betrayed, murdered, sealed away within this house. But the reflection in the mirror before it broke. The man who stood beside her looked exactly like him. Chapter 5. The spirit in the photographs. 3 days had passed since Akira Sato left house number 13. He looked pale, hollow-eyed, and exhausted. His co-workers avoided him. The story of the woman in the photo lab had spread quickly through the newsroom. And Mr. Tanaka, the technician who had witnessed it all, had disappeared the day before. Akira sat at his desk, clutching his camera like a lifeline, though he feared it more than anything else. When he turned on his laptop to delete every file, a new image had appeared on its own. File name: IMG_666. He froze. He had never taken that photo. Opening it, he saw himself, sitting at his desk, viewed from behind, as if someone had taken the picture from just a few feet away. Akira turned instantly, heart racing. No one there. He raised his camera, flicked on the flash, and swept the beam across the room. Everything was as it should be, except for the mirror at the end of the hallway. In the reflection, a woman with long hair stood just behind him, her hollow eyes watching. The flash went off. When the light died, she was gone. But when Akira checked his screen, her face was perfectly visible, Ko's face, staring directly into the lens. Dash dash dash. Drop of blood photographs that breathe. That night, Akira printed every photo he had. He laid them out on the table under the pale light. A soft whispering filled the room, not from any direction, but from the photos themselves. He leaned closer. In the first photo, Ko stood in the distance of the alley. In the second, she had stepped closer. In the third, she was facing the camera, her head tilted slightly, eyes empty, her expression both tender and horrifying. Akira's throat tightened. He grabbed a pair of scissors, intending to cut the last photo apart. But as the blades touched it, blood seeped from the paper. A single drop, red and warm, fell onto the table. Then came the sound, clack, 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 the echo of wooden sandals from the hallway. Akira turned toward the door. The window burst open, rain and wind poured inside. The curtain flapped wildly, like pale hands groping in the air. Lightning flashed, and there, pressed against the glass, was a woman's face. Ko's. Her lips moved soundlessly, but he knew what she said. Greater than, "You're still taking my picture." Thunder crashed. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Dash dash dash. Telephone the final call. The next morning, Akira's phone rang. The voice on the other end was hoarse, trembling. "Greater than, Sato, it's me. Tanaka, you have to, listen?" Static filled the line. "Greater than, she's in the photos. I ripped them apart, but she..." The connection broke. Akira stared at the screen. The number displayed read, "Does not exist." Dash dash dash. That evening, the local news reported. Greater than, a man was found dead inside a darkroom in Arakawa. His body was shriveled and deformed. In his hand, police found a photograph of himself. Behind him, the faint figure of a long-haired woman. Akira sat motionless. He looked again at the stack of photos on his desk. In the latest one, Ko was no longer far away. She stood beside him, her pale hand resting on his shoulder, smiling faintly, as if pleased to finally be seen. Chapter 6. The Curse of Ko. Saturday afternoon. The sky over Tokyo was dull and heavy, clouds pressing low like a lid. Akira Sato sat in a quiet cafe near Minamisenju Station, staring blankly at the old diary he had found in house number 13. For days, he hadn't dared to open it again. Every time he did, he could almost hear a woman's voice whispering his name. But now, he forced himself to turn to the last page. Beneath the dried brown stains of blood and tears, there was a folded letter, trembling, desperate handwriting. Greater than, if anyone finds this, tell Sato Kenji I do not hate him. I only want to know why he hid our child. The name made Akira's heart stop. Kenji Sato, his father. Dash dash dash. Drop of blood, the buried secret. Akira traveled back to his childhood home in Chiba. The small wooden house stood silent, draped in dust and incense smoke. His father's wedding portrait still hung on the wall, smiling kindly. Eyes gentle, but for the first time, Akira felt afraid of that face. He searched through old drawers until he found a small wooden box. Inside was a faded photograph. A young man, Kenji, his father, standing beside a woman in a white kimono, smiling softly, her belly slightly rounded. On the back was written, "Greater than, Ko and Kenji, Autumn, 1972. Akira collapsed to his knees, breath caught in his throat. Ko had been his father's lover. And if the diary was true, Ko had been pregnant when she died. Dash dash dash. That night, back in his hotel room, Akira sat before the mirror. He studied his reflection, the shape of his nose, his eyes, his mouth, all identical to the man in that photograph. A thought crept in, chilling and absurd. Greater than, if Ko's child had lived, they would be about my age now. As soon as he spoke, the lights flickered. The mirror rippled like water. Behind him appeared a woman, pale and soaked, eyes full of sorrow. Ko. Greater than, I found you at last. Her reflection leaned closer, smiling through tears. A cold hand brushed his shoulder, soft, damp, almost loving. Akira spun around. No one there. But in the mirror, his reflection had changed. Sunken eyes, blood trickling down his neck, a faint red mark as if an invisible hand was clutching his throat. Candle, the curse awakens. That night, Akira couldn't sleep. In his dreams, he stood once more in house number 13. Ko sat by an old cradle, cradling something small in her arms, humming the same eerie lullaby. Greater than, my child, you won't be left behind again? Akira woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat. The camera on his desk had turned on by itself. The flash clicked, TCHKK. A new photo printed from the portable printer beside it. It was him, sleeping in bed. And beside him sat Ko, gently touching his hair, her expression tender, like a mother watching her son. He stared at the picture until his hands shook. Now he understood. Ko wasn't just a vengeful spirit. She was his mother, murdered before she could give birth. And the child she carried had been reborn, as Akira himself. The curse wasn't just blood, it was inheritance. Ko didn't want revenge anymore. She wanted to bring her child home. Chapter 7, The Sixth Night. Since discovering the truth, Akira Sato hadn't slept for days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw a woman walking through the rain, her kimono soaked. Her pale hands carrying something wrapped in white cloth, and her cracked lips whispering the same song. Greater than, K's ni mao. Aim ni nur, watashi no koyo. Dancing in the wind, drenched in rain, my child. The melody followed him everywhere, faint, distant, like it was seeping from the walls. Candle, the first footsteps. Friday night. Almost midnight. The drizzle outside turned to a steady rain. Akira sat in his apartment, all lights on, windows locked tight. Yet above the sound of the storm came another rhythm, slow, deliberate. Clack, clack, clack. Wooden sandals. Moving along the hallway outside. He turned on his recorder, proof that this was real. The footsteps stopped right outside his door. Clack. A single tap, then silence. He held his breath and peered through the peephole. A faint white shadow moved past. Heart racing, he opened the door a crack. No one there. Only a photograph on the floor, edges soaked with rain. On the back, smeared handwriting read. Greater than, Friday, I will come home. Skull whispers around the alley. The next morning, panic spread through the neighborhood. A woman, the owner of a nearby food stall, had gone missing overnight. Police found only a pair of blood-stained wooden sandals near the drain, and strands of long black hair tangled in the grate. Old neighbors whispered, greater than, it's Friday again. You can hear her sandals when she walks for the lost child. An elderly woman told Akira, greater than, if you hear her steps 3 times, she'll come for you. Once for warning, twice for memory, thrice for return. Akira's blood ran cold. He had heard them 3 times already. Once in the alley, once in his hallway, and once last night. Coffin, the rain ritual. That evening, Akira returned to the alley with his camera. He had to prove it was all in his head. He set up his tripod under the eaves, aiming at the end of the narrow lane. 11:30 p.m., nothing. 11:47, wind rising. 11:52, heavy rain. 11:59, the camera switched on by itself. Through the lens, he saw a figure walking slowly toward him. Long hair clinging to her face. Kimono white as bone. She stopped a few steps from the camera. Then, she raised her head. Even through the lens, Akira felt her eyes meeting his. Greater than, you haven't come home yet, Akira? The voice was soft, full of grief. He stumbled back, fumbling for the power button, but the streetlight went out. Darkness swallowed the alley. From behind him, that same voice whispered again, closer now. Greater than, Friday night, you belong with me. A cold hand brushed his neck. Akira turned, nothing there. But the rain smelled of incense and lavender, the scent from Ko's old room. Drop of blood morning after. The next morning, police sealed off the alley. They found Akira's camera in the mud, lens cracked, its memory card waterlogged. When technicians recovered the data, the footage showed only Akira standing alone, smiling faintly before vanishing. Behind him, a blurred woman cradled a small bundle in her arms. At dawn, someone saw Akira sitting by the gate of house number 13. He was soaked, holding KO's diary to his chest, whispering through a broken smile. Greater than, Mother, I'm home. Chapter 8. The Shadow in the Mirror. A week after that rain-soaked Friday, Akira Sato returned to work. His colleagues avoided his eyes, his face was pale, his expression hollow, as if he'd left a part of himself back in that alley. He didn't remember what had happened that night, only fragments, a woman's lullaby, incense smoke, and a cold hand pressing gently against his cheek. When he arrived at his desk, a white envelope lay there. No name, no sender. Inside was a single photograph of him, standing before the mirror in his bathroom. And in the reflection behind him was a woman with long hair, face streaked with blood, wearing a white kimono. Drop of blood. The first reflection. That evening, Akira stared at the bathroom mirror, telling himself it was just a trick, just the mind playing games. He turned away, but the reflection did not. His image in the mirror stayed still while he moved. He froze. Then the reflection began to change, hair lengthening, skin turning pale, eyes sinking deep into black pits. The lips trembled slightly, whispering, "Greater than, you cannot leave me." The mirror cracked with a sharp snap. Glass shards fell to the floor, scattering across the tiles. Akira fled into the living room, breath ragged. On the walls, every framed photograph had begun to distort. And in each one, a part of KO's face appeared, smiling, frowning, weeping, watching. TV. The screen that looked back. He turned on the TV to drown the noise. The screen flickered, the news anchor's face blurred, replaced by static. Through the distortion came a voice, soft and trembling. "Greater than, Akira. Do you see me now?" He grabbed the remote, switched off the TV. But the screen didn't turn black. Instead, it showed a face, KO's, pale and shimmering through the static, her eyes lifeless, her lips parting. "Greater than, I'm here." The TV sparked violently and went dark. Smoke rose from the broken set, and on the wall behind it, a faint, moving shadow lingered. The shape of a woman, tilting her head as if watching him from another world. Candle. The room of reflections. Terrified, Akira covered every reflective surface in his apartment, mirrors, windows, even the TV, with newspapers and cloth. But that night, under the dim yellow light, he noticed a faint movement on the wall, as if someone was walking behind the wallpaper. Then came the sound of dripping water, slow, rhythmic, tap, tap, tap. When he looked down, a puddle was spreading across the floor. But the water was flowing upward, forming a thin, shimmering surface like a liquid mirror. And from that reflection, his own face looked back, smiling when he wasn't. The reflection's hand reached out from the water, cold fingers wrapping around his throat. Akira choked, thrashing, clawing at the floor. The water rippled violently, and then burst apart. He lay gasping, drenched, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and blood. Across the wall, letters appeared, written in dripping red strokes. "Greater than, you've seen me now. There's no turning back. Gray heart. The true shadow." The next morning, a neighbor knocked on his door after hearing noises overnight. They found Akira sitting in the corner of the room, eyes wide open, surrounded by shattered mirrors. In each shard of glass, the neighbor swore they saw different expressions of the same woman. Smiling, crying, furious, or whispering something they couldn't hear. Akira clutched his head and muttered over and over, "Greater than, she's everywhere, she's inside me." Chapter 9. The Keeper of the Alley. A week after the incident with the mirrors, Akira Sato was no longer the same. Everywhere he went, he felt eyes following him, in windows, puddles, glass doors. He realized he couldn't escape. Only by finding the truth could he hope to stop her. So, one cloudy morning, he returned once more to Arakawa district, to the Nameless Alley. The path was emptier than ever, but something had changed. Above the entrance hung strips of white paper charms, fluttering in the wind. On the ground lay a circle of half-burned incense ash. The neighbors said nothing as he passed. Only one figure watched him, an old woman sitting under a tattered awning, her eyes milky and distant. When Akira approached, she spoke before he could say a word. Greater than, "You're the one she's chosen, aren't you?" Candle the survivor's story. Her name was Mitsuko. She was over 80, her voice thin but steady. Once, long ago, she had lived next door to Ko Fujiwara, the woman in white. Greater than, I used to hear her crying every night, Mitsuko said, staring into the distance. She was with child. The man she loved promised to marry her, but he already had a wife. Her hands trembled slightly. Greater than, one night I heard them arguing. Then silence. The next day, the door to house number 13 was locked, and a smell, metallic, heavy, spread all the way down the alley. Akira felt his stomach twist. He didn't need to ask who the man was. Greater than, Ko never left that house. The old woman continued. Her soul was sealed inside a mirror upstairs. He used her own blood to bind the curse, to hide his sin. Akira went pale. He had broken that mirror weeks ago. Had he freed her? Drop of blood, the warning. Mitsuko pulled a crumpled charm from her sleeve, ink faded, edges torn. Greater than, this was nailed to the door of house number 13. She said. As long as it stayed intact, she couldn't leave. But now, she looked up at him, eyes suddenly sharp despite their cloudiness. Greater than, now, every Friday night, she walks the alley, searching for her child. Her voice lowered to a whisper. Greater than, if she finds him, she'll take him with her. Akira's hands trembled. Greater than, what must I do? The old woman gripped his wrist tightly, her nails icy against his skin. Greater than, return to her what she lost, or she will take you instead. Fire the ritual in the rain. That night, guided by Mitsuko's instructions, Akira went back to the alley. He carried the old charm and Ko's diary in a small wooden box. The rain began as a drizzle, then grew heavier. He knelt in the middle of the alley, lighting 3 sticks of incense. Greater than, Ko Fujiwara, he said softly. If you truly are my mother, please rest. I'll uncover the truth. A cold wind rose. The charm in his hand ignited on its own, burning with blue fire. From the end of the alley came the echo, clack, clack, clack. Ko appeared through the rain, her white kimono soaked, her long black hair sticking to her pale face. In her arms she held a small blood-stained pillow. She stopped before him. Greater than, you would leave me again, my son? Akira staggered back, eyes wide. But from the shadows, Mitsuko's frail voice rose in a chant. Flames erupted around the broken mirror that Akira had brought. Ko screamed, a sound that tore through the rain, half sorrow, half rage. Greater than, no one will separate us again. A white mist burst from the mirror, enveloping them both. When it cleared, Akira lay unconscious on the wet ground. Mitsuko was gone. Only her wooden prayer beads remained, and a shard of burnt glass showing 2 silhouettes. A woman and her son, holding hands in the fog. Chapter 10. The letter with no sender. Tokyo was quiet that morning, strangely peaceful after weeks of rain. For the first time in days, sunlight seeped weakly through the blinds of Akira Sato's apartment. But even the light felt cold. He hadn't slept. Since that night in the alley, he'd been hearing things, faint whispers, the soft patter of footsteps, and sometimes, a woman humming behind the wall. He told himself it was imagination. Then came the knock. A postal worker handed him a single yellowed envelope, no return address. No stamp, just his name written in shaky ink. Greater than, to Akira Sato, the son of Kenji. His heart stopped. Someone new, He tore the envelope open. Inside was a letter, written in his father's handwriting, uneven, trembling, as though written in haste. Greater than, if you were reading this, I am already gone. Your mother, Ko Fujiwara, did not die by accident. I killed her. A drop of something dark stained the corner of the paper, dried blood. Akira's hands shook violently. His father's confession continued. Greater than, I loved her. But she carried my child, and I was a married man. That night, she begged me not to leave. We fought. I pushed her. The fall broke her neck. I panicked. I buried her beneath the floor of that room. I used a mirror to seal her spirit, so no one would ever find out. Greater than, but I hear her footsteps every night, even now. And when you were born, I saw her eyes in yours. I knew she'd come back for me, or for you. At the bottom, the ink had blurred, as if smeared by tears. Greater than, she will not rest until I pay my debt. Forgive me, my son. Forgive us both. Signed, Kenji Sato, 1998. Candle the messenger. Akira sat frozen for a long time. Then came the knock again, soft, slow, steady. He opened the door. An old woman stood there, Mitsuko. But something was wrong. Her skin was gray and cold, her eyes cloudy as if filmed over. She smiled faintly. Greater than, I delivered the letter. She whispered. She made me promise. Akira's throat tightened. Greater than, you're dead. Mitsuko nodded, a brittle smile breaking across her face. Greater than, yes, but I still owed her one last favor. Her voice cracked, fading like wind through dry leaves. Greater than, it's Friday again. Akira, she's coming. Blood must answer blood. Then she turned and walked down the hall. Her wooden sandals echoed softly. Clack, clack, clack. When Akira blinked, she was gone. Telephone the final call. That night, Akira sat alone. Thunder rolled over Tokyo. He stared at the letter until the ink bled under his tears. The phone rang. He picked it up, expecting silence, but instead came Ko's voice. Clear and soft. Greater than, my son. Do you know now why I stayed? Akira trembled. Greater than, mother, please, let me rest. The voice on the line sighed, almost tender. Greater than, I never meant to hurt you. But your father's sin still binds me. When you were born, I found my way back, through you. Static filled the line. Greater than, come home. Akira. Friday night, house number 13. The call ended. Outside, rain began to fall, slow, rhythmic, like the sound of her sandals on wet stone. Chapter 11. Return to house no. 13. Rain fell again over Tokyo that night, heavier than ever before. The streets glistened like dark rivers under flickering lamps. Akira Sato stood at the entrance to the Nameless Alley, clutching his father's letter in one hand and his old camera in the other. This was the 6th Friday since everything began. He knew what it meant. The letter's words burned in his mind. Greater than, come home. Now he understood, not an invitation, but a summons. Candle the house awakens. The alley was silent. Even the air felt thick, as though the world itself were holding its breath. At the far end, house number 13 loomed, its wooden walls slick with rain. The door half open, waiting. Moss grew over the steps. The smell of incense and rot mingled with the scent of wet soil. Akira pushed the door. It opened easily, as if the house had been expecting him. Inside, the shadows felt alive. Every floorboard creaked like a sigh. The furniture stood untouched, draped in dust, as if time itself had stopped on that night in 1972. At the center of the room hung the mirror, repaired, whole again, though he had shattered it before. Its surface gleamed faintly, even in the darkness. Akira stepped closer, whispering, greater than, mother, I'm here. Skull the voice behind him. Greater than, you came back. Akira. The voice was calm, almost gentle. He turned. Ko stood in the doorway. Her kimono white as snow, soaked through with rain. her hair hanging over her face. Her eyes were empty, yet brimming with something that felt like sorrow. Greater than, "Why did you bring me here again?" he asked. "Because this is where everything began," she whispered, "and where it must end." She approached slowly. Her fingers brushed his cheek, ice cold but soft. "Greater than, I waited 30 years. For the truth, for you." A single tear slipped down her pale face, mixing with the rain. "Greater than, I only wanted to see my child. But he looks just like him." Coffin the locked room. The stairs groaned beneath their feet as she led him upward. At the end of the hall was the same locked room, the one she had died in. The door opened without a touch. Inside, the air was heavy with incense. A single candle flickered on the floor beside a patch of bare earth. The boards had been pulled away, revealing a shallow grave. Akira fell to his knees. Bones lay there, delicate, small, curled around a faded pillow. "Greater than, is this you?" he whispered. Ko knelt beside him, her face luminous in the candlelight. "Greater than, yes, and the child that never lived, both of us forgotten under the floor." Akira's vision blurred with tears. "Greater than, I'm sorry. I didn't know." She smiled faintly. "Greater than, you are my atonement. Akira, you carry his blood and mine." Her hand touched the wound in his chest, a warmth spreading through him. Strange and heavy. "Greater than, but blood must pay for blood." High voltage, the final choice. Lightning split the sky, casting the room in a flash of white. Ko's form began to flicker, her face shifting, part gentle mother, part vengeful ghost. "Greater than, you can leave, and the curse will remain," she said softly. "Or stay, and end it, for both of us." Akira looked into her eyes, his own reflection staring back. He took a deep breath, drew the small dagger from his coat, and pressed it to his heart. "Greater than, if my death gives you peace, then I'll stay." Ko reached out, tears mingling with blood. "Greater than, you have your father's courage and my heart." He plunged the blade downward. A burst of light filled the room, crimson and blinding. Ko screamed, not in rage, but grief. "Greater than, no, Akira, I only wanted to hold you." Candle the morning after. When the rain stopped, the neighbors found the house half collapsed. Inside, police discovered 2 bodies, one male, one female, lying side by side, hands clasped. No wounds, no struggle, only peaceful faces. On the wall behind them, written faintly in blood, were the words, "Greater than, we're home now." Chapter 12. The Call in the Night. 3 days after the collapse of house number 13, Akira Sato opened his eyes in a hospital room. The world outside was gray, the sky pale as paper. Machines beeped softly beside his bed. They told him he was lucky, that rescuers had found him buried beneath the debris. Unconscious but alive. He didn't feel alive. Every movement hurt, as if something inside him had been torn apart and stitched back together the wrong way. When he closed his eyes, he still saw the candlelight of that room, still heard his mother's lullaby, drifting through the smoke. "Greater than, aim ni nur. Watashi no koyo." Drenched in rain, my child. Drop of blood, the first call. On the 3rd night, the phone by his bed began to ring. He hesitated before answering. "Greater than, hello?" Silence. Then, faintly, the sound of rain, in soft footsteps. "Greater than, Kira?" A woman's voice. Distant, soaked, trembling. "Greater than, Ko," he whispered. The voice exhaled, half sigh, half sob. "Greater than, sleep now. My son, you're home." Then the line went dead. The dial tone hummed softly, like the whisper of rain against glass. Akira dropped the phone, heart pounding. In the reflection on the black screen, he saw a white face behind his own. Hair hanging over her eyes, smiling gently. Cell phone the message. The next morning, the nurse found him sitting up, staring at his phone. He said nothing. But when she checked the device later, There was one unread message from an unknown number. It read, "Greater than, have you forgotten your mother?" Sent at 2:13 a.m. Akira replied with trembling fingers. "Greater than, what do you want from me?" No response. Moments later, the phone flickered, its screen glitching. A new image appeared, not from his gallery, not from any camera. It showed Akira sleeping in that very bed. And beside him, Ko, her hand gently brushing his hair. Her face was clear this time, calm, almost tender, her lips curved into a faint, sorrowful smile. Skull the second call. That night, the phone rang again. Akira recorded it this time. When he played it back, static filled the speaker, but beneath it was her voice, steady and mournful. "Greater than, you can't escape the blood that made you. Your father's sin is still in your veins. If one of us must pay, it must be you." Akira shouted into the receiver. "Greater than, I am not him. I didn't kill you." The voice fell silent. Then came the faint sound of a child laughing, soft, distant, echoing through the static. "Greater than, but you are his blood." The call ended with a long beep. When the recording stopped, the phone displayed a single message burned into the screen. "Greater than, Friday, midnight, come home. Candle the sign." The next morning, Akira was discharged. The doctors said his wounds had healed, but he still felt cold, as if the hospital air couldn't reach his lungs. He returned to his apartment. Everything was untouched. But as he entered, the lamp flickered once, and his old camera, broken, dusty, clicked on by itself. The shutter flashed 3 times. When he checked the screen, new images had appeared. The alley. House number 13. The front door, open. And in the last photo, faint but clear, a white figure standing at the gate. One hand raised, as if waving him back. Chapter 13. The truth from 30 years ago. Friday night again. Rain fell softly over Arakawa, thick and silver under the streetlights. Akira Sato stood once more at the entrance of the Nameless Alley, trembling as cold water soaked through his coat. He had come to end it. There was no other choice. Ko's words echoed in his mind. "Greater than, come home." He clutched the letter from his father in his fist, its paper warped from tears and rain, and stepped into the darkness. Camera the return of memory. As he walked deeper, the world began to twist. The modern street faded. The light flickered and vanished. When he opened his eyes again, the year was 1972. The alley was alive, warm lamplight in the windows, laughter faintly drifting through the rain. He saw a young woman standing before house number 13, Ko Fujiwara, smiling, her hands cradling her pregnant belly. Inside the house waited a man, Kenji Sato, his father, young and handsome, face tense with fear. "Greater than, you promised me." "Kenji," she said softly, "you said we'd start over." "I can't," he answered, shaking. "I have a wife, a life, this. And me? And our child?" Her voice rose, trembling between anger and despair. "Greater than, if you leave me now, I'll tell them everything." Kenji turned away, eyes wild. "Greater than, don't threaten me." "Ko." She stepped forward, grabbed his sleeve. He shoved her. It was a small push, but she fell. The sound of her body hitting the table was sickening. Then silence. Only the rain outside. Kenji stared at her motionless form, panic spreading through his face. He knelt, shaking her shoulders. "Greater than, Ko, please, get up?" But she didn't move. Her eyes were half open, staring at nothing. Blood spread across the tatami mats. In the corner, the lamp flickered and went out. Drop of blood the ceiling. Kenji worked all night. He dug a hole beneath the floorboards, tears streaking his face as he carried Ko's lifeless body, still clutching the small pillow she had sewn for her unborn child. "Greater than, I'm sorry, forgive me." Ko. He covered the grave and set a large mirror over it, whispering a prayer. Then, with a trembling brush, he painted charms of blood across the frame, sealing the spirit forever within. The next morning, the house was silent. No one asked questions. Ko Fujiwara was never seen again. Hourglass back to the present. The vision faded. Akira stood once more in the ruins of the old house. His knees weak. The rain poured through the broken roof. Cold and heavy. Greater than, now you know. Ko's voice floated through the air. Calm, distant. She appeared before him, translucent, beautiful, and tragic. Greater than, he took my life, and yours. The child inside me never breathed. But you were born anyway, from his blood, carrying my pain. Akira trembled, tears mixing with rain. Greater than, you were my mother, all along. She nodded, smiling faintly through her tears. Greater than, I never wanted to harm you. Akira. I only wanted you to remember me. The ground beneath them began to shake. The walls groaned. The mirror on the far side of the room glowed faintly, light pulsing like a heartbeat. Ko looked toward it. Greater than, my soul is still bound there. One life must be offered for it to end. Coffin the sacrifice. Akira stared at the mirror, then at his mother's fading form. Greater than, if my death frees you, then take me. Ko shook her head slowly, her hair glistening like strands of night. Greater than, you don't deserve to die for his sin. Her voice broke, trembling. Greater than, but blood calls to blood. The curse will follow you until one of us disappears. The wind roared through the house. Akira stepped forward, reaching for her hand. Greater than, then let it end tonight. Their fingers touched. The mirror cracked. Light burst from the fracture, filling the room in a white blaze. Akira felt himself being pulled, through glass, through memory, through darkness, until all sound vanished. Crescent moon after the storm. At dawn, the police found house number 13 reduced to rubble. Among the wreckage lay two figures, holding hands, a man and a woman, faces peaceful, as if asleep. No one knew who the woman was. The man was identified as Akira Sato. On the wall behind them, faint traces of blood formed a single sentence. Greater than, at last, we're together. Chapter 14, The Last Night. That night, the Nameless Alley was silent. The rain had stopped for the first time in months. No wind, no thunder, only a stillness so deep it felt like the world had stopped breathing. At the far end of the alley, the ruins of house number 13 glowed faintly under the moonlight. From within, a single flame flickered, as though a candle had been lit in the dark. Inside, Akira Sato lay motionless on the floor. His body pale, blood dry on his shirt, one hand reaching toward the cracked mirror beside him. Next to him sat Ko, her long hair draped over his chest, her kimono torn and soaked, her eyes gentle, filled with a strange, eternal peace. She began to hum softly, the lullaby that had followed him since birth. Greater than, aim ni nur. Watashi no koyo. Drenched in rain, my child. The sound echoed through the ruins, tender and haunting, drifting into the night like smoke. Candle the soul awakens. Outside, lightning flashed silently, light without thunder. Akira stirred. His eyes opened slowly. But when he looked down, he saw his body still lying there. He was standing, yet he was not alive. From the shadow beside him, Ko rose too. She smiled, reaching out her hand. Her touch was cool but no longer cold, warm like morning dew. Greater than, you came back, she whispered. I promised, Akira said softly, you shouldn't be alone anymore. Ko's eyes glistened with tears. Greater than, you've done enough. My son, the curse is over, you're free. But Akira shook his head. Greater than, if you remain bound to this place, then I'll stay too. For the first time, she laughed, not the voice of a ghost, but of a mother. Greater than, you're stubborn. Just like him, but kinder. She took his hand, and light began to fill the broken house. Drop of blood the passing. As the light spread, the wooden walls melted into mist. The floor faded into rippling water. The mirror on the ground glowed and shattered completely. its shards rising into the air like fireflies. Akira looked around, the alley was gone. They stood in a sea of fog. Weightless, endless. Greater than, is this, death? He asked. No, Ko whispered, it's home. She turned to face him, her form beginning to dissolve into mist. Greater than, our suffering is over. But the world will remember the rain. She kissed his forehead, her tears falling like drops of light. Greater than, rest now. My child. The fog swallowed them both. The last sound was her lullaby, fading into silence. Full moon the next morning. When dawn broke, the alley was gone. Only an empty lot remained, the ground damp and glistening. Workers clearing the area later claimed to hear faint footsteps. Clack, 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 echoing through the morning mist, though there were no buildings left to carry sound. At the center of the site, they found a small wooden box untouched by the rain. Inside was a photograph, old, water-stained, but still clear. In it stood a woman in a white kimono holding hands with a young man under the falling rain. Both were smiling. On the back, written in faded ink, greater than, we're home. Chapter 15. The Shadow in the Alley. 10 years passed. Tokyo had changed, the old neighborhoods rebuilt. The nameless alleys turned into narrow roads lined with vending machines and neon lights. No one remembered house number 13 anymore. No one spoke the name Ko Fujiwara. The curse had faded into rumor, then into nothing. But sometimes, when it rained, the sound of wooden sandals could still be heard faintly. Clack, 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 echoing through the puddles like a memory that refused to die. Cityscape the Reporter. In the summer of 2025, a young journalist named Rina Takahashi was sent to write a feature about Tokyo's forgotten urban legends. While searching archives, she found a name that caught her attention, Akira Sato. Missing since 2015. The police report mentioned a collapsed building in Arakawa, and an unidentified woman found beside him. Locals still whispered about that alley, the one that no longer existed on any map. Curious, Rina began to dig deeper. At the municipal office, an elderly clerk handed her a dusty file. Inside was a black and white photo, water-stained but preserved. It showed a woman in a white kimono holding hands with a man under the rain, both smiling faintly. On the back, faded writing read, greater than, we're home. The clerk shook his head. Greater than, strange thing. Miss, that photo turns up every few years. We file it away, and it always comes back. Candle the return. That night, Rina walked to Arakawa after work. The rain had just begun, soft at first, then heavier. She followed the old address from the file. The street was quiet, lined with new apartments, but when she reached the end, she saw something impossible. A narrow path that shouldn't exist. Between two buildings, dark, slick with rain. No sign, no light. Yet from deep within came the faint sound of dripping water, and the echo of sandals. Clack, clack, clack. Rina's breath caught. She raised her phone and took a picture. The flash lit up the path for an instant, revealing, at the far end, a woman in white, her head bowed, hair covering her face. Greater than, excuse me, Rina called out. The woman looked up. For a moment, Rina saw her eyes, dark, endless, and filled with sorrow. The phone slipped from her hand. When she picked it up again, the path was empty. Cell phone the final photograph. Back in her apartment, she opened the photo she'd taken. At first, it was too dark to see clearly. But when she adjusted the brightness, her heart stopped. Standing behind the woman in white was a man, soaked in rain, camera hanging around his neck. His face half hidden, but unmistakable. Akira Sato. Rina froze. Her reflection flickered on the phone screen. But in it, someone stood behind her, smiling faintly. Thunder rumbled. The lights went out. Cloud with rain the city remembers. The next morning, Rina's apartment door was found open. Her phone lay on the floor. Screen cracked. The last image taken at 2:13 a.m. showed a narrow alley under heavy rain. And at its center, a woman and a man walking away together, hand in hand. Police dismissed it as coincidence, a glitch, an illusion. But that night, when rain fell again, people near Arakawa swore they heard a lullaby drifting through the streets. Greater than K's ni mao, aim ni nuer, watashi no koyo. Dancing in the wind, drenched in rain, my child. The rain has stopped, but the dark alley still remains, hidden somewhere between the city's bright new streets. No one remembers the old house anymore. Yet, on some nights, when the wind carries the scent of rain, people swear they can still hear footsteps. Soft, distant, echoing through the mist. A woman in white walks slowly through the puddles, singing softly to her lost child. Behind her, a young man follows, silent, at peace. Greater than K's ni mao, aim ni nuer, watashi no koyo. Dancing in the wind, drenched in rain, my child. Perhaps the curse has ended. Or perhaps it's only waiting for the next rain to fall.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.